Remember when you thought reaching a certain milestone would change everything? Getting the job, making the money, buying the apartment? And for a moment, maybe a few days, it did feel different, lighter. But then, it faded, and you were back to wanting, back to the void. What if that wasn't a personal failing? What if that's not how happiness actually works? What if the entire premise that having more will make you happy is fundamentally, psychologically wrong? Erich Fromm spent decades studying this, and his conclusion was radical. The having mode doesn't just fail to bring happiness, it actively prevents it.
There's a concept in psychology called the hedonic treadmill. It's simple. When you achieve something or acquire something, you get a dopamine hit. Happiness spikes, but your brain adapts quickly. What felt special becomes normal. What felt like luxury becomes baseline. And suddenly, you're back where you started, wanting more. Studies on lottery winners show this perfectly. They win millions of dollars. For about 6 months, they're happier. Then their baseline resets. They're back to their original happiness level. They have more money than they could spend in a lifetime, and they're no happier than they were before. Some are actually more miserable because the money created new problems and never solved the underlying issue. But here's what Fromm understood that most people miss. The hedonic treadmill isn't a side effect of the having mode. It's the defining characteristic of it. It's not a bug. It's the system working exactly as designed.
Think about this. Every person who says, "If I just make 1 more million, then I'll be happy," is lying to themselves. Not maliciously. They're trapped in a logical trap. Because the having mode is fundamentally built on the premise that external things will fill an internal void. But external things can't do that. They never could. Fromm called this the paradox of affluence. The more you achieve in the having mode, the more hollow it becomes, because you're constantly trying to fill a void that isn't created by lack of possessions. It's created by lack of connection, lack of meaning, lack of purpose, lack of authentic self. And the deeper you go in the having mode, the more you lose touch with the things that actually create happiness: real relationships, creative expression, meaningful work. You sacrifice them for the accumulation, and then when you reach the top, you're alone there.
Fromm made an important distinction. He talked about real happiness, which comes from being in a state of aliveness, from creating, from connecting, from presence, and pseudo-happiness, which is what the having mode promises, a temporary emotional state triggered by acquisition, achievement, or status. Real happiness isn't a feeling, it's a state of being. It's not something you get, it's something you are. And you can't achieve it by trying to have more, because the very effort of trying to have more pushes you further away from the conditions that create real happiness. The researcher Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi studied something called flow, a state where you're so engaged in an activity that self-consciousness disappears. And he found something interesting. People experience flow during creative work, during genuine connection, during challenging activities they care about, not during consumption, not during achievement of goals for status, during presence, during being fully alive in the moment.
Let's be precise about why the having mode actively prevents happiness. First, it creates constant comparison. You're always measuring yourself against others, so you're never satisfied, because there's always someone with more. Second, it creates anxiety about loss. Once you have something, you fear losing it, so you're never relaxed. Third, it's built on the hedonic treadmill.
so satisfaction is mathematically impossible. You can't catch it because the goalpost moves. And finally, it creates what we might call upgrade-itis. The moment you get something, a newer version exists. Your phone is outdated, your apartment is smaller than you thought, your income is less than what you see others make. You're trapped in perpetual inadequacy. It's not a side effect, it's the core mechanism. So when Fromm says that having more will never make you happy, he's not being pessimistic, he's being precise. The having mode is psychologically incompatible with happiness. The two cannot coexist.
So, what would it look like if you stopped trying to be happy through having and started looking at happiness differently? Fromm's answer is simple, but requires radical honesty. You'd have to stop and ask yourself what you actually need to feel alive. Not what society tells you, not what Instagram shows you, what you actually need. And when most people ask themselves that honestly, they find something surprising. They need meaningful work. They need genuine connection. They need to create something. They need to contribute. They need to grow. They need to understand themselves and others. None of these require having more. Most of them require having less distraction, less performance, less stuff. But getting there requires something most people never do. It requires stopping the treadmill and sitting with the discomfort of asking, who am I when I stop accumulating? That question terrifies people because they might not like the answer, or they might not have an answer at all. Which brings us to something Fromm understood deeply. The having mode doesn't just prevent happiness, it prevents something more fundamental. It prevents you from knowing who you actually are, and that's what destroys us from the inside. We will explore next how the modern life silently rewired you without even noticing. Don't forget to subscribe if you like this series. Thank you.